Anyone here?
Yes, you can. We'll start shortly, approximately in 5 minutes.
By the way, there's the music and it's like super loud.
Hello, everyone. Um, Welcome to the third online Slovenia Games Meetup. And today we have two special guests, Primož Strajnar, who is CEO of Tricky Tribe, and Miha Vrhunc, who is a lead artist at Tricky Tribe. And they will talk about the hyper-casual games and more specifically about their recent hit ASMR Slicing, which was #1 downloaded iOS game. And now I'll just give a word to Primož. So yeah, enjoy.
Hi guys, hello. Nice to see everyone. So I'm not a big surprise for the meetup because most of you have seen me before, and I'll just give a quick introduction into this workshop presentation, and then Miha will take over. So let me just get the screen sharing started. Okay, so just a quick introduction for anyone who's not familiar with what hyper-casual games are. It was supposedly, this term was coined in March 2017 by AppLovin in this article on Pocket Gamer Biz. In very general terms, it's the games that you see ads for while you play other games, and you simply want to play them. And once you start playing them, you kind of get, as a gamer, you get annoyed because there are many ads, for example, in those games. So with this, I kind of gathered up the two critical points of hyper-casual games. That is, first, that they're super appealing to a very broad audience. Meaning, when you see this short ad, you simply want to try and play the game. And once you start playing, you see that the game is very shallow, usually, and has one core, very appealing mechanic, and is monetized by ads. So you are often interrupted with an ad while you play the game, and that's the gist of it. Hyper-casual games, as such, have been around for more than this time, from before 2017. They're simply those very simple games that sometimes have sprung up. You're obviously familiar with Flappy Bird from, what was it, 2014 or 13. It was a hard game, but essentially it was a simple game. We could call it hyper-casual. But in that time, for a game like that to be a success, it had to have some viral factor. It had to have the luck of being spread virally across the world, which happened to Flappy Bird and some other simple games like that. Nowadays, and this is what I'll talk about in the next couple of slides, a business model has evolved around these simple games that have been around before, a business model that's sustainable, where you can make money on those simple games and you don't have to rely on this random virality or luck or a great game as well, like it happened to Flappy Bird. You cannot reproduce Flappy Bird by working towards it. You have to have a bit of luck, at least, to achieve it. So what happened what happened that these games are now a business model and sustainable? So first of all, everybody who can have a smartphone has a smartphone these days. I'm exaggerating a bit, but the growth of how many people have a smartphone has stalled, has almost stopped. So it was over 20% of people got a smartphone back before 2015, and now less than 5% of people get a smartphone for the first time every time. Meaning everybody has a smartphone that can afford one, and the market is as big as it is. At the same time, money from advertising has been coming into mobile internet and mobile games and so on. As you see from this graph, in 2016, there was a certain split of how ad revenue, how ad budgets are spent across the world, and 15% of that went to mobile. Nowadays, 26% of all ad revenue goes into mobile. It's the second biggest now, and almost all other venues of ad revenue have fallen in that time. So the money that before didn't go to mobile advertising has been coming to mobile advertising. There are no more smartphones, so basically more money is coming, more ad revenue is coming onto each smartphone. In this way, the value of ads shown on each smartphone is higher. And if you have a hyper-casual game, you are able to show, if you run a hyper-casual game, you are able to show all these ads to people. And the value that you get from these ads is much, much higher than it was in 2015 and before. So it's not just like fractions of pennies that you get from every view of an ad, but it's more now, and it makes business sense. At the same time, what has happened is that running advertising for your game, so showing ads of your games to people, has been simplified. Mostly because a lot of small companies and agencies have died or have consolidated, merged, have been acquired, have closed down. So right now, Facebook and Google, if you can run your ads on Facebook and Google, you can run ads on 70% of internet. And Facebook and Google at the same time have made it much, much, much easier to run ads on their platforms, meaning they have taken away a lot of controls that you had before. So some of the early hyper-casual games, very successful ones, were, for example, run by 2 to 5 person studios from Belarus. So you didn't have to be in a hotspot like Paris, New York, or San Francisco. You could do it anywhere. You didn't have to have an army of marketing people running it for you. So basically, what I'm trying to show you is that more money is pouring into mobile phones, and it's easier to run marketing for games on mobile phones. So so a hyper-casual game, for it to be successful, it's all about data, meaning it has to make a certain amount of money in the first couple of days, which is how long people play these games. Mostly, there are some exceptions, of course, and that's measured with these KPIs that I'm showing on the left side of the screen here. So CPI is these will be things that Miha will be mentioning later. So try to remember them if you don't know them yet. CPI is cost per install. How much I have to pay to acquire to get one user to install. In other words, how many ads do I have to show for one person to be convinced to install my game, which is the second parameter I'm showing, IPM, so installs per mille, meaning if I show 1,000 ads, how many people will install a game, a hyper-casual game? For example, if you get 10 people to install out of 1,000, that's a very, very high number. And that if you can do that, your CPI, your cost per install, will be very low. And with cost per install being low, I mean it has to be less than 20 cents dollars for an American user on an iPhone. And the second part of the equation on the opposite side is lifetime value, which means how valuable a user is, how much money this user has brought into the game. This is, like I said, mostly done by watching ads, rewarded videos, and interstitials. And it's mostly tied to how long people play, how many minutes, how many days, and that adds up into the value of the user. ECPM is estimated cost per mille, which means how much if I show 1,000 ads, how many dollars do I get paid? And to run a hyper casual game, you have to do that very well. You have to have a system, backend system, showing the correct ads to the correct users at the right time, in real time, and so on. Hence, I'm showing this graph of the top publishers of hyper casual games, because running all these things at the same time has become an art and has become competitive. It's nowadays, today, it's harder than it was 3 years ago when a two-guy studio could do it. It is competitive, so you do need a bit of knowledge, especially in creating compelling videos for your game and in optimizing ad revenue for your game. And the last metric, and the most important one for game developers, for us creating the game, is retention. The most important metrics here are how many people come back and play your game 1 day after they install the game, 3 days after they install the game, or 7 days after they install the game. And these numbers generally need to be day 1 above 50%, day 3 above 20 or 25%, day 7 above 12% or 15%. These are the good numbers you're going after to be able to make a hit. And the simple math at the end of this is the value that you bring from a user, so the lifetime value. If it's higher than the cost per install, the cost of acquiring that user, then you make a profit. And that's all the math there is to it. But of course, to increase both of these numbers, well, increase lifetime value and decrease cost per install, requires a great game, a great team running ads, a great team marketing the game behind it. So as you can see, my background is not art or game development, but I'm an economist. So thank you for bearing with me through these couple of graphs. And I'll end here and hand over this to Miha.
Okay, thanks for the intro. Hi, everyone. I'll just share the screen. Just a moment. Yes. Okay, everybody sees.
Yep.
So I'm gonna show you how we fell into this and our story developing hyper-casual games. So basically, just a little bit about me at the beginning. I'm originally a 3D artist, but being a small team, there are many things that have to be done, and during years, I acquired experience in different things. So I help with concept art and mock-up videos, with sketching, with game ideas. I also take care of some of our ads, level design, specifically for hyper-casual, etc. So basically, we're a small team, so we have to do it like this. But it's interesting, you know, to jumping from one thing to another. These are some of my projects that I worked on. It all started with Groove Racer. That's my baby, basically. Tinker Island, probably known by some of you, where I did animations and some of the illustrations. And lately, last 2 years, we invested in trying to make a good hyper-casual game. And here I'm also not just the artist, but I also started making input as a game designer. Just a few softwares at the bottom that I use. And now I'll just jump into the first project. Actually, first showing you a little bit more about hyper-casual. Basically, hyper-casual games have incredibly simple gameplay, and they're meant to be played by everyone. So your mother, your father, your aunt, basically everyone that has a mobile phone. And that means that the game has to be so simple that you have to know just by looking at it how you play it. Nobody will read instructions. It has to be really, really simple. Also, art and design of them is really simple. Here I'm showing the helix jump from Voodoo that's really popular. And on the right side, you see the image of, sorry, I forgot the name, but it's from Quali. Racing game, a very simple game. Basically, you turn right by just holding the finger, and when you release the finger, it goes left. So really simple controls. And of course, as Primož said, all of these games are ad revenue based. So basically, no in-app purchases, or if there are in-app purchases, usually just to disable ads. So these games are really popular, and when we played them, we started to ask ourselves, how the hell? They're really repetitive. Let's say you play level 1 or you play level 100, and the levels are really similar. So how can they be so repetitive but so addictive at the same time? And here is the example of Helix Jump being at the top of downloads. And when we discussed about this, we came to this. Basically, the most important thing behind it is the feel good, instant gratification feel that the player feels while playing. And in our opinion, it's a combination of instantly understandable gameplay. The controls are really simple, basically just swiping, tapping, hold and release is a really popular mechanic in this game. So the controls are really simple, very, how I could say, low energy controls. Basically, you only move finger a little bit and that's it. No complex controls, no complications. Haptic feedback is a really important thing, especially combined with rewarding visual effects. So basically, you through touch and through visuals and through sound, you give this good feel to the player. And one special interesting thing for me regarding all hyper casual games is that the challenges are usually easier than they appear. So the game gives you a feeling of achievement by actually being simple, but not looking like that at the first glance. So it's kind of ego gratification for the player, in a way. Well, now I'll jump to the actual hyper casual games we created. So here's a bunch of them. We worked on them in the last 2 years, but that's not all. We actually experimented a lot with ideas. Some of them made it to the mock-up phase only. Some of them actually made it to the prototype phase. And some of them even had updates, but never saw the store. Because we really wanted to make a successful game, and some of the ideas we were critical enough to not even publish them. And now I'm going to jump into first hyper casual game that we actually released. So here's the elevator. I'm just going to run the video with the sound so you know what I'm talking about. So this is a very simple physics-based game. our developer chose the music for this game, which is quite appropriate because it's happening in elevator music. Yeah, the game is really simple. Basically, you just tap and hold to raise the elevator up, and when you release the finger, the elevator falls down. And the gameplay is basically bringing characters to the right floor at the right time. When characters come into the elevator, a number lights up, and you have to bring that person to that floor. And of course, we spiced it up, as maybe you've seen. One character is bigger, and that also creates elevator heavier, so it's also harder to control it. And of course, we added some other things to spice up the whole gameplay. And obviously, as you continue to play, levels get bigger and bigger. There are more and more floors, so you need to be quicker to bring characters to the right floor. Well, we developed this and launched it, and the first results that came back were quite good. Actually, the CPI was decent. Retention numbers were good. They were about more than 40% day one, which is pretty good for a first try. And the status was promising. You know, we knew this game has some good feel, and we decided to continue working on it and trying to improve it, to make it better, to make retention better, to make it more interesting, add more things in it. And this is how the updated game looked like. So basically, we added more characters, we added some special characters that you might recognize later. We added more visual effects and some more new challenges to the game. We also added building names and different color schemes, so there was more variation visually in the game. Here you can see some special characters. Maybe you recognize the one on the left. In the middle, special characters, newlyweds that you have to combine. So you take the husband and you have to run him to the right floor to meet wife. So they go there. Or disco guy on the right that you have to bring to the bar floor. These were all things there are more special characters like that we chose to spice up the whole experience. Well, and improvements that just didn't arrive. Numbers stayed basically the same, and of course, the game, we could continue to work on it, but we also had already ideas for other games. Now I'm just gonna tell probable causes. I don't know exactly, but just thinking about it later, probably the game is still too hard, specifically the controls. The art we zoomed out in the last update. Because of it, floor numbers became harder to read. Floor numbers at the top of the elevator are quite important UI element in this game. Overall, the game is just, I guess, too difficult. It would fall more into the puzzle genre, maybe. It's still good feeling there and it's fun to play, but also so is frustration, I guess, for players. That's why numbers didn't tell us otherwise. But as I said, we already had some new ideas, and hence we come to the penetrator. So to show you how it looks like. So the penetrator, it's a very simple game. Basically, just jumping ball that you have to guide to the goal, and you control everything by swiping left and right, making the circles rotate. So it has a very simple art. We spiced it up later. Maybe I'll leave that for later. But let's come to how it all began. So this is a mock-up that I did. That was very early phase. Basically, we were just having talks about this game in general, and idea came about this key lock. If you imagine a key coming from the top, trying to unlock the whole mechanism, and you would basically just rotate these circles by swiping left and right. We all kind of liked this idea, so we decided to make a prototype with this, though we ended up doing something like this. The consensus was that maybe key is too complicated and big element, and the game would look better with a small element like this cube here. The mechanic stayed virtually the same, but two things were added. One is that we created this seamless transition into the next level. So when you come to the goal at the bottom, it takes you into next level. So this was quite nice to us, and we basically retained this for most of the game in upcoming updates. But we also wanted to make something a bit trickier and reward the player if he's able to go through multiple holes at the same time, so-called perfection. And we call it combo effect. So if you go through one hole, you get 1 point, but if you go like through a few holes at the same time, those points multiply. About the name, so the penetrator is a controversial name, and it's both plus and a minus. It started as a joke, but we put it in, and the plus thing is that it actually helped a bit with virality, because it's a name that sparks interest, no matter how you want to call it, and I think it helped lower the CPI a bit. The bad thing is that we received some reviews about people telling us we should change the name and stuff like that. And we actually tried for one update. We renamed it into Core Dive. And we actually saw a bit of increase in CPI. So that means that maybe the name actually helped the original name. So we actually reverted back to Penetrator, to original name. So it stayed controversial in the end. But of course, we focused on trying to make the game better overall. So we improved the art. We defined the color schemes. Best score was added at the top, which we all thought and still think is good retention driver, because people want to return and to improve their own score, their own previous score. One specific problem with the game, though, was that we were not able to make long levels because the camera is fixed. And one workaround over this was breaking levels into chunks. So if you, right now, if you look at the top, level is split into 2 chunks. So you have to pass both chunks to complete the level. And of course, the contrasty color elements are the bad elements. When you fall on them, it's game over. So in here, it's the yellow ones, as you can see. The game improved. The CPI was good, and also the retention numbers was good. This was actually the first released game. This video that you see, this is from the first released game, and the game was promising. It was visually simple, but I guess it was fun enough for people to return. And of course, we wanted to improve it further. And well, just to show you guys how we actually designed the penetrator. Of course, developer created most of it. I just created simple assets, simple 2D assets. But here is where the magic happens, the spreadsheet design. I think this really helped us with all our hyper-casual games. And it started here with this game. The first spreadsheet was really simple, but it grew in complexity. And with it, we could really do quick iterations regarding how the levels look like, how long the levels are, even the speed of jumping, the ball, how fast the ball is jumping. And the more you can iterate, the quicker you get to something that's more fun. So we stayed with this modus operandi for all our games. And I still think it's really important that we got this, because without it, yeah, the development would be, I think, really, really slower and more problematic. It's hard to say to developer, do this and do that. It's much easier if you can play around with numbers yourself. So this is how an updated game looked like. Here we did some simplifications, visual simplifications. One thing that you probably see is that good elements are green, bad elements are red. So we really try to simplify it as much as possible. And we also taken the problem of not being able to make long levels by trying to put camera dynamic. So the camera moves together with the character. We're not limited anymore to short levels. We can create longer levels. And this version improved a little bit, but still we weren't where we wanted to be. I think this was the third update. It was my idea to make parallax backgrounds and to make art more interesting while retaining the red elements for the bad elements. And we also introduced characters. Basically, we wanted to put more variety, more visual variety. And from what I remember, this update performed quite well. We were still missing the numbers we wanted, but the variety was here. People seem to respond well to new characters. Though gameplay was still lacking. So we had, of course, many ideas how to improve this, how to improve the retention. We had ideas for metagame, shown here in the left, like shop for characters or missions, daily missions, some new ways how the circles are behaving, and a lot of ideas about making good color schemes. Crazy Labs helped us a lot here as well. Their designers went to work, and together we came up with this scheme that I think works really nice, specifically because the bad elements are now black, and that means that the red that was reserved for bad elements can now be used to spice up the color schemes in general. So we were less color restricted, and we introduced balls as main characters as well to further add to the variety. Contrast worked really well here, and we were really hoping that this will improve the game in general. Level design was improved as well. We had more time to play around with spreadsheet design, so new ideas came up. Some levels are really closed, so even you have to rotate and rotate the circles to come to the whole point where you can fall through, and some levels are really open. This video is just to show you how the diversity that we were able to get. And yeah, the actual game as it is now in the store. So you can see long levels, color schemes are new. We introduced the addition effect from one level to another. That was lost a bit. Level design was improved. Yeah, so a lot of time actually went into all these changes, specifically because we stayed on a prototype code. That means that there was no refactoring of the code, and it was problematic from development point of view, because every new function we added in the game broke some other things. So we spent a good amount of time fixing things that broke, and we didn't decide for refactoring simply because the early numbers were already pretty good, and we anticipated that just one small update will get us there, but unfortunately it didn't happen. So yeah, in the end, we just weren't able to get the right numbers to make the game profitable. But we already had some new ideas. Hence, one thing, just to break this, all while this was happening, a new idea came, making hypercasuals without coding. We heard about Buildbox. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but it's a software that lets you create simple games without a line of code. And since I'm not a programmer, but I enjoy creating stuff, that sounded great. Buildbox allows quick prototyping, and the whole design of the game is in my hands. So I was really ecstatic when I heard about it, and I was happy to jump into it. And we went into it. Here, just simple loop video of a game I created. That was really, it was, I don't know, a matter of hours I created this. Unfortunately, I don't have screenshots or videos of my favorite prototype that I created. So I only felt this one, and it was really fun working on it, and I was really optimistic about actually using this to create a fun hyper-casual game. But unfortunately, the reality for now is, as we found out, yeah, there are numerous problems. The first one being it was hard to implement analytics inside, and without them, you don't know where you are. There are big problems implementing SDKs. Also, the reason why publishers generally say no to this. The fact is, software is actually quite limiting. You have when you open Buildbox, you have presets for kind of game you want to create, and of course, being limited on one side sparks creativity, and that's a good thing. But well, it limits you as well. So you're not able to create something really fresh. And it was still a bit buggy, to be honest. So we decided not to continue using Buildbox, but definitely I would give it another shot in the future. And now we're gonna jump into the next hyper-casual game that we actually created and released using Unity. So, here's the demo. It's a really simple game. Basically, just squeeze through traffic, swipe left and right to maneuver the car, swipe up and down to go faster, and squeeze. It's actually started with this game, which is Hyperspeed. And this game actually, it was nice to play, but the CPI was quite mediocre, which means that the game was fun to play. The retention numbers were okay when we released it and tried it out, but it was just not as clickable as we wanted. So a question came: what if we would try this sort of game with actual traffic? And this came out. First prototype of Squeezy Car. The squeezing is actually a result of an accident in spreadsheet design. But we liked it, and we make a whole point, the point of the game out of it. And the idea for the name Squeezy Car was really instinct. We released it, and the numbers that came back were really promising. Game had low CPI, which was, I think, about 30 cents or something like that. And the retention numbers were good. We continue working on it. Of course, we made one mistake. That was we put coins in the game. When you came near other cars, you achieved so-called near miss effect that gave you coins. And of course, people ended up with a lot of coins that didn't know what to do with them. So definitely we calculated this into our next updates. We had a lot of ideas how to make game better, from meta game to putting challenges inside. And this is the list of what we actually improved in the game. We make the game visually more appealing. We added particles inside, crash animations were improved, curved roads, more variety in the whole design and everything. Car shop selection was added, so everything was improved, and even some crazy ideas like colored obstacles were tried out in A/B tests, but unfortunately none of them improved. And looking back, we polished the game a lot, art-wise, visually, but the whole game stayed pretty much the same. What I mean by that is the game, what you actually do in the game stayed pretty much the same, and probably that was the reason why all these improvements didn't really improve retention. Now comes the slicer part, basically. So end of last year, simulation games came on our radar, and the idea behind them is taking something satisfying from physical world and make it into a mobile experience. These sort of games are really popular, meaning they have very low CPI usually, but it's a challenge retaining players for a long time. Idea came for something like this. I don't know if you've already seen videos of kinetic sand slicing, but with our partner Crazy Labs, we came to the idea that making a game with this could prove to be, you know, the thing. If you look at the left, 27 million views for this kind of games, for this kind of videos. Some of them even more than 100 million views. So that's quite crazy. But people really love watching this sort of videos, and the sound is also very important. It's kind of a relaxing. Yeah, we decided we're going to try to make a game out of this. So trying to find the feel-good inspiration for it, we watched YouTube videos, we checked Instagram. This specifically is made by an artist that was published on Instagram. Motion graphics is always a good source of inspiration for this kind of games. And also Facebook videos are becoming more and more popular. TikTok as well. So there are many sources of inspiration for the game. And when we set kind of desk, we did this. This was my mock-up for how this game could look like. Some very simple concept art, basically. Just swiping finger. That's a rare screenshot of the first prototype that was created. And this is the actual first version of Slicer. We distanced ourselves from just kinetic sand, and we said, let's try putting all different kinds of objects inside to make it more interesting, to make better variety of objects. The gameplay is really simple at this point. Basically, you have a knife and you swipe up and you swipe down to cut it. Famous developer words were that this isn't even a game. But when we released it and we analyzed how the players react, we got very promising results back. So the CPI was very low. The early retention numbers were good, and it had virality potential. And all this with just 12 levels. So 12 levels that start repeating themselves randomly, infinitely. It's quite crazy actually, because to play those first 12 levels, you need maybe 2 minutes or something like that. And then the game just continues to repeat itself. And yet people return the next day, more than 50% actually. So this was very promising. Of course, we immediately started trying to make it better. We added new objects, more interesting objects. We added some challenges inside the game. But we also added one thing that I think idea came from Crazy Labs, that we should try making the knife jump up automatically, meaning that you don't have to drag knife back up, but you just release the finger and the knife jumps up automatically. And we tried it out, and it really felt good actually. So we retained this thing inside. And all these changes improved the game. So the 7 retention improved from 8% to 13%, which is quite an achievement. We weren't exactly where we wanted yet, but this really looked good. But one thing happened, which is kind of plus and minus actually. Plus, good thing is that when you see copycats popping up, you know you're doing something right. The bad thing is we were under additional time pressure because we really didn't want somebody to overtake us. And this was just a few weeks after the first released version in iOS store. Basically, clones popping up. So we went back hard to work and trying to make the update that will change it all. Now, one thing started popping up ever since we put challenges in, and that was that people started posting reviews they just want to cut. They don't like challenges. They just want to relax and cut objects without challenges like slice this object into this many slices, or slice off the right amount of weight of the object. So you would assume people know what they want, right? But numbers say no. Actually, we created an A/B test in one of the updates, and it showed that the version without challenges performed the worst. It had retention drop compared to the versions with challenges, and also the rewarded videos that are watched were less. So this proved to us that putting challenges into the game was definitely a good thing. This is how the spreadsheet design looks like for the slicer. At this point, the green field that you see is just the first level, and all the settings that are set up for object, for type of challenge, for knife settings, even background colors are here. And this again proved really valuable to trying out new things, iterating and finding out what really makes the feel good better. So we're still working hard on our update under time pressure. Crazy Labs helped us here with some great ideas how to improve UI. But we also added metagame. We added mystery objects that you unlock if you play the game long enough. And we also added knife shop. So basically you can buy knives that you want to cut with. And all these improvements really made a difference. The CPI was even lower. We improved short-term retention, and the rewarded video was hugely increased. So this is the as it looks like. So basically, we retain swipe down to cut. The knife jumps up automatically. We added new challenges, so there are 10 new challenges in the game. We optionally gave people so-called Zen mode anyway, so they can, if they want to relax, they can just go into settings, click the Zen mode button and just cut. There are now more than 90 plus unique levels, and of course metagame with shop and all that, and the game was localized, so the game is global now. We had a little bit of help that was unexpected. Actually, the game went viral for some reason. We just found ourselves in this thing, and Business Insider wrote about us. So that's always a good thing, you know, to get free exposure like that. This came out of the blue. And of course, with huge help of Crazy Labs, we started climbing up the charts. And here you can see the famous screenshot of getting to the #1 in US games. So special thanks again to Crazy Labs for all the help. Now just like to recap why the slicer succeeded and not the other ones that I've shown before. And the first thing, of course, is that very low CPI was crucial. That means that it was very cheap to get users. But the CPI is also very important because it shows that there is a huge interest for this kind of thing. So very early on, when you test, if the CPI comes low, you know you're onto something. Even if the retention is not good, you can always try to improve the retention. As long as the CPI is low, you know you're doing something that people want to play. The next thing, I think, is we focused on quality of levels first, and then we started adding quantity. So just 12 levels and getting good day one retention was a bit unexpected, but definitely proves this point. The feel good is executed well, and we retained it all through the updates, because sometimes it may happen that trying to fit too many things into a game, you kind of lose the feel good of the first prototype. I think it already happened to us. Slicer has huge visual variation between levels, not just the objects, but also the backgrounds, and the sounds are now different, challenges are different. So every level is something new, basically. Updates actually worked. That means that we did right decisions. We had a bit of luck here. We had a lot of ideas. We still have a lot of ideas how to improve the game, but of course we are limited by time and energy, and we really have to make it's not easy to make the right decision here, because you don't know exactly what how the updates will perform. And we started taking haptics seriously with this game specifically. And also the development cycle for this game was quite quick. That means that the code was written in such a way that it was fairly easy and fast for our programmer to add new functionalities. And just for the end, what we learned so far from all these games that we produced in recent years, focusing on art is a bad bet. Polishing a game is nice, but putting all eggs in that basket is really risky. And not just the art, but the gameplay in general. It's better to have a wacky and unpolished game than a bit less interesting but more polished game. At least our experience show that for us. Cheesy, it sounds, it's still all about the good feeling. I know I'm repeating myself, but it's really important to retain that. That's why the players keep on returning. Games are applications that, well, they're not like banking application that you have. Even if you feel frustrated, you'll keep on using it because you have to. If a game frustrates you enough, you'll just stop playing it and start playing something else. So it's crucial to not frustrate the player and to retain that good feel. Advertising videos for first 4 seconds are crucial. In the first 4 seconds, you have time to show the viewer that he wants to, press that and install it and try it out. So I would advise to really put the most interesting parts of the game in the first few seconds, but also avoid putting complex visuals in those first few seconds, because people want to understand what's going on. And if there's too much things happening, too much effects, it's hard to say what's going on. Controls, if you have to explain them, they're probably too complicated. So really trying to make them easier. There is a very thin line between too hard and not challenging enough. And level balancing is really important. Again, spreadsheets really helped us, and I think were crucial throughout the whole development. Game development on a prototype code means very painful and slow development. And this was a hard lesson with Penetrator. Keep the code modular and refactor it often. This is one of the reasons why Slicer, I think, succeeded. We were able to test out new ideas, new functions in the game, and add them relatively quickly compared to previous games. I already mentioned haptic, and last but really important as well, you never know what players actually want, because they don't. And I'm talking about the Zin levels in the Slicer. People say they just want a cut, but when you give them that option, they actually don't return at the same rate anymore to the game. Yeah, so this is it. Hope I wasn't too long. Thanks for your interest, for viewing, and yeah, if you have any questions, please fire away.
Thank you, Miha. And now we will go to questions. And you can just raise hand and ask the questions, and unmute yourself and then ask. Oh,
sorry, I had you on mute. Can you repeat?
I'm just saying that you can raise your questions, raise your hand and then ask a question, and yeah, so we go in order.
Okay, hello. I'll start.
Hi.
First of all, hey, Tom here. First of all, congrats on the success. I think it's a really nice achievement, and I'm really happy to see that we have some really successful stories coming from our parts, right? So really praise on that. And thanks for the presentation, quite informative. And I have a couple of questions, but I will also give others some time. So I will go one by one. So when you do the, let's say, market, you test the market fit or the market response, okay, to your games, right? You do this in an iterative version, iterative way. Do you also look at only the US market, or do you compare how different markets respond to your games? Did you analyze also cultural differences? Are there or are not?
There are definitely differences. But we focus on US market specifically for testing because it's quite representative, and it's really important market. Actually, it's one of the most important markets. So we at least for all our games until now we test CPI in the US, and then we go from there.
Thanks. Well, then I have another question. Yeah, thanks. So this was actually related. Yeah. So you said you test your CPIs in the US, okay, and then I guess you go global. I don't know, or you tell me which markets you target. But if you experiment already the first version in an open market, you said you can easily get copycats, right? Or maybe do you also diminish the wow effect on the users? I don't know. How do you balance, how widely to experiment at the beginning, or should I just go experimenting, I don't know, in Australia just for the sake of it, and then release in US? What are the approaches there?
If I understand you, if we would test in some more, let's say, smaller market first, probably we wouldn't be copied that fast. But it's always a question of getting representative data. So that's it's something you have to balance. Yeah. You get some, you lose some. It's also cheaper to get users in some other countries. I don't remember. Sorry, I don't remember exactly which ones, but definitely there are markets where you could get even lower CPI. But again, the problem is it wouldn't be representative when you would want to launch it in the US. Yeah, it's kind of gamble, really. Always.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, my question is, do you even worry about that, or you just go for the US and you don't take this gamble? I mean, do you actually make a decision on it or no?
We actually just decided to focus on the US first. Also, the iOS, we focus on iOS first, and then we go on into Android later in other countries. So, but we start with iOS US because we see it as the most representative.
Thanks.
We have also like 2 questions from the YouTube chat. So first one is, what have you learned about haptics? What works and why, and how did you test that?
Cool question. I'm a big advocate of haptics since the start, and in early games we just had haptics basically on and off. But for Slicer, now unfortunately our developer would be able to tell you more about it technically, but I think we used some plugin for Unity or something that where you actually can control the haptic with curves as well. So not just that it appears and disappears, but also how it intensifies through the time. And we really tested this out, tried out different variations. This is too strong. This is too weak. One interesting thing that happened is I was coming to work during winter, and my fingers were cold, you know. And when I came into the office, I started playing Slicer, and I didn't feel haptic, and I thought something was broken in the game. But developer told me, no, wait a little bit until your fingers warm up. And actually, that was it. When my hands warmed up, I could feel the haptic like I wanted. So basically, here we went for a really fine haptic. We didn't want it to be too strong, but we still wanted this accentuation when you cut, when the knife hits the table, you feel it a little bit more. So just trial and error, really. But yeah.
Great. I think this answered the question. And the next question is, what does Crazy Lab bring to the table? How are they involved? Marketing, monetization, QA, UI, etc.
Crazy Labs has been really helpful in the whole process. Basically, the whole idea was created together for this slicing, and they're really great at marketing the game. From what I see, they experiment a lot with ads. They're constantly working and trying to improve. We also now have playable ads for the slicer, so they're working continuously, and we got some great help also from them regarding the UI design for slicer and for the penetrator, where we already worked together. So great input from them, but the thing is that it's impossible to get like the formula or the recipe for a successful game. So it's like black magic, every game has its own specifics. So it's really hard to say that we found a recipe for anything. Every project is a new specific thing.
Okay, thank you. And we will just do one question from the chat, and then Luca and Leo, you can ask your question. So the question from chat is also, when you were testing the potential of hyper-casual games, prototypes, did you publish games yourself or through a publisher?
We first published the game ourselves on our account, and just to see the right numbers, and with later updates, at one point when we were sure that this will be it, we put it on the publisher's account. There are one thing we didn't do is we didn't use a second hidden account to release the game. Maybe if we would do that, copycats would have less, wouldn't copy us that fast. But with today's tools, it's really hard to hide when the game pops up. When your game pops up, you immediately see. So yeah.
Thank you. And I guess, Luca, you can now go, and then after you, Leo.
Okay, hey. So I have a question regarding the CPI testing. How many users did you buy with one test? Was it 1,000 or more?
If I remember numbers correctly, it was about 1,500. Yeah, somewhere like that. And somewhere like that. Less than 2,000.
Because I also noticed that when we also did this few hyper casual games 2 years ago, I found a strange pattern when we made few mistakes and we made really small changes that weren't actually visible. And that was one error when we published the same game without any changes because we just made a mistake. And I noticed that there is quite a big fluctuation of CPI from week to week, from month to month. So in the case where we didn't change nothing, it was like the change was about 7 to 10%. It was like, so if we make a change and then measure it, what is the confidence that you actually did a positive or negative change in the game? It's really hard to measure that. Did you guys encounter the same problem, or did you find any solutions to that?
Yes, we actually encountered that when working on Penetrator as well, where we tested basically the same game when we did the update, and we used the same ads, and the CPI was a bit higher, and I think the market is changing fast, and there are many elements that contribute at the end to this number. So the more players you get, the more representative the number. So there are no guarantees, I would say, regarding that. It's just an indicator, but yeah, it can change. It can change quickly.
One more question regarding the economy, or economy-wise question. Do you think this is a viable business for a company, even a small company, on the long run? Because from my experience, it was like, it's really hit and miss. You either get all or nothing. And even when you get all, some publishers have revenue caps, and it doesn't seem that appealing when you do all that calculations.
You mean the time developing the game?
Yeah, so how many people are working on it and for so long time, and you make one game that succeeds, does it make, I mean, is it viable on the long run? Can you see a pattern? Okay, we can make one game a year or one game per 2 years and it's gonna work.
I think I see. Yeah, I see. Though I have to say, we learned a lot. We were working on these hyper casual games for the last 2 years, basically, and we needed quite some time to learn how to properly make a hyper casual game. But hopefully we learned, and new upcoming ideas will succeed faster, and there will be less ideas that just stay in the prototype phase.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
If I can chip in here, because I made the decisions about revenue caps and so on. So it's a tough business. It's honestly a tougher business than we expected it to be when we went in. So what Miha explained, this was going on for over 1.5 years, this process. And Penetrator and Squeezy Car were games on which we worked on for like over 9 months or over 6 months on each simultaneously.
Yeah.
So is it a viable business model? Yes, I think it is. It's predictable, but it's a hit and miss. What gives me confidence is that there are small and big studios that are able to repeat their success with the game. A great example is Quali, who's a hyper casual developer turned publisher later. They basically created first 20 hits within their own single studio of like 15 developers. So there is knowledge that you can acquire and then be able to do this with a higher chance of success, I think.
Cool. If you go on with this space and this amount of resources that you're investing, how many games do you need to, how many games do you need to succeed per year that it remains a viable business?
Well,
approximately, is this 1 per year? Do you have to make 2 per year or 1 per 2 year?
Well, the revenue you can get out of the game really depends a lot on the game itself and on the deal. There are companies offering, well, working with revenue caps. We do not like that, and we do not work with that. But even if there are revenue caps, they're relatively high. So to support a Slovenia-based studio, you need 1 game every 2 years, even, to have
nice.
like 10 people work on it. I hope. We still didn't get, the game is not live. We don't have all the numbers yet, but I think it's a decent amount of money that you get, because you get a lot of players, like in the tens of millions, giving you a couple of cents each over 6 months to 1 year, for example.
Cool, nice. Good luck.
Thanks. And we have Leo now.
You hear me okay? Okay.
Yeah.
So basically my question is, how do you approach hyper-casual publishers these days? And the reason why I'm asking this, because basically I was asked this question like an hour and a half ago by my colleague, and I answered based on my previous experience with hyper-casual publishers back in the day when my company used to be alive. And we were basically, back in the day, we were approached almost by accident. So we had a couple of games, mobile games, published on Play Store, and Voodoo accidentally found us, or found us intentionally based on their research. But I'm interested in, how do you go and just ship push mails through their channels, through their communication channels, or do you place your applications on the stores, on visibility platforms, and just hope that they're going to ask you to join their program, whatever the program is?
So if I can answer, because I also deal with this, I do about 3 to 5 international shows per year. I visit them. And in the last year, and I do this for the last 5 years, and it's really, really easy to talk with hyper-casual publishers on some of these shows. So for example, a show in London that happens every year, and that I go to for the last years, many years, for the first time ran out of meetings, tables, and so on, and space and whatever. The system where you organize meetings was overwhelmed. So because of hyper-casual games, there are so many publishers going there and having meetings with indie developers that also now come to these shows more because they need to talk. But I have found it incredibly easy to get to talk to somebody. All you need is a decent game on iOS on your account in the USA. And I've been able to speak with everybody from Voodoo to Lion Studios. Voodoo was the only company that I never reached out to directly, but over the last year, they've reached out to me 4 different times, 4 different people, without knowing about each other. And obviously, once this slicing game was out, everybody reached out to us because we were top charts and so on, including Ubisoft, catch-up from Ubisoft, but Ubisoft email. So I think the best way to do it is just to have a decent-looking game on the App Store and reach out through email or sign up or whatever.
So
It's,
basically what they are doing now just to continue to do in the future, right?
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
There's also one question from the stream, and the question is a publisher a must for such a simple game? And how much is the return of the investment if you go self-publishing?
I would say like this. I think it's almost impossible to go without a publisher. I mean, one example, when a game succeeded that was very simple was the Flappy Bird, but Flappy Bird went viral. Flappy Bird had a lot of luck. It was a game that was extremely hard, challenging, and I think it went viral exactly because of that. Doing something like this through guerrilla marketing or something like that is, or counting on luck is a bad bet. I think it's really hard. The only thing is if you're if you're investing into marketing yourself and you have the knowledge and experience with that, and well, you're competing with other big publishers, so it's maybe Primož would know how to add something.
So Garmana Games asked about the return on investment if you do self-publishing or not. So obviously, if you reach the exact same success as you would with a publisher, meaning you have the same capacity of creating, I don't know, 40 videos every week in 10 languages and running ads at the same level, same fill rates, same eCPMs, you would obviously get all the profit that's left over. So is that possible is the second question. I think not. You just need like you need a team with experience. Either you can buy a team like that or hire really experienced people, but at the end of the day, you need a couple of years of experience in running ads and so running marketing and running monetization in your games. And I think it pays off to work with a publisher to do that for you. I think the cake is bigger than the whatever revenue profit share they get. I don't know, 50% or 70%, however they take. I think the full cake for us is bigger, and we get more out of it if we work with a publisher. To reach the same level, I think we would need I don't know, additional 10 people only working in video ad creation, monetization, and stuff related to that, like QA as well. They have a team of 10 QA people, and they work on our games. But yeah, you could do it yourself, but it's not easy.
Okay, then like one or two questions from my side. What are like the development cycles, and what are like the team size, let's say, for such a games? Like, would you say like 2 or 3 people, or like, I don't know, more or less?
Miha, go.
Yeah, basically, usually it was artist and developer. Combination of this. When we were working on updates and under time pressure, we got a bit of help from the second developer and the second artist, but mostly just one artist, one developer, and some extra help in the team regarding level design and spreadsheet design. So yeah.
But how long are like the sprints, or like how long is like one, like, let's say, update or like development cycle for a game?
For one update, I would say it can be a week or two, or it can be a month or even more. depending on the size of the update, and specifically if you're creating A/B tests, which are quite important, and everything has to go through QA, then it's even longer. So yeah, that it can take a while. So it can definitely take a while.
For a quick reference, it took us 16 days, I think, to get from pencil sketch to running the first test on slicing, on the slicing game. So 16 days for the prototype with 12 levels, and then it took us another 2 months and a half to be #1 on the store.
And then one question, like, how do you know like this game should like be updated, or like how do you like measure like improvement? You said like that you have like some games didn't improve, or like it's like that you just said, okay, we'll stop updating it. Like how do you like measure, like, or like how do you know, okay, this will be okay, just based on like CPMs and like retention, or
from the standard numbers we look at are retention numbers. Day 1 and day 7 specifically are the most important, and the LTV. So and of course, all trying to while checking that the CPI stays as low as possible. And when we're doing updates, we definitely want to see the improvements in specifically day 7 retention and LTV, because those are the most important numbers. And if updates don't improve the retention, well, that means that game may be better looking or a bit more interesting and stuff like that, but it didn't motivate players to return more to it. And if you're not profitable, so as Primož showed in the intro, if the CPI is higher than the LTV, then well, the math is bad. Then you even if you're in the plus, even if the CPI is lower than LTV, you still want to improve as much as possible. And let's say for those numbers that Primož told, day 1 50%, day 7 about 15 to 20%. So if your day 7, no matter what the game, if your day 7 retention is 10%, you know you have to improve something. If you improve it by at least couple of percents, then you may be okay with it. But it still depends on the LTV as well. So there are many numbers here that are actually combined together to show the whole picture.
And at some point, we expect to simply run out of people who like this kind of game, and I think we'll approach that in a couple of, like in 2, 3, 4, 5 months, and then the number of new users coming in will be very low, and it will stop making business sense to continue updating.
Thank you. And just one last question. Maybe this is more for Primož. Like how does like a studio like that goes from like Tinker Island, which is like text-based idle clicker, goes to hyper casual? Like what's the transition? Like why and how did it turn like this?
Well, we had a game in between, which was our highest production value game, called Journey Jake, and it was a mini game from Tinker Island, greatly expanded into a full-fledged game for women. The mini game was appealing to women players in Tinker Island, so we made a full game out of it. So it's not a direct switch. Basically, what we learned was that we have no idea why Tinker Island was a success as it was. Well, not no idea. We know what the game is and that people like it, but we realized we're not geniuses. We don't know what will work, even if we have data, standing behind us. So the logic was, okay, this hyper-casual looks pretty easy. Let's make a quick prototype and make $1 million. And then 2 years later, here we are. The transition was hard. If you saw the elevator prototype that Miha showed, if you noticed, it had a lot of rules and a lot of controls, and the fat guy that got into the elevator changed the controls, and you had the newlyweds and that and this and that, and so that was the first game, and we were still looking at it a lot like a game. Moving now to the slicing game, basically you have to try hard to lose a level. Maybe one time you can lose, or maybe twice, but third time you just quit because it's so easy. So in terms of what a hyper-casual game needs, we learned a lot. And it's really hard to learn this because you probably don't even know the people that play these games. They're just much different than we are, who are at least, a certain level of a gamer. Even not, some are more hardcore, some are not. But very few of us in the team are casual, hyper-casual player, and none of us are women. So it's hard. It was hard to learn all this.
And so there will be no sequel to Tinker Island, or
no. The sequel is actually quite far along. It's been in the development for almost 2 years now. So it will be. And I saw there was another question: how did Corona impact the development and the release of the game? Very positively. We released it during coronavirus pandemic, and it was our second release since 2016. The Corona itself didn't affect us much. We're a small team, and we quickly learned how to work from home, so no big problem here.
Okay, and I think now Luca and then Maya can ask the question.
Hey, another question. So when the stats were perfect and you found out, okay, we're going all in with this game, how many users did you have to buy? And how did CPI increase with number of users that you had to buy? Because you probably the number of users that you could buy were decreasing by the numbers day by day when you bought so many users. And are you still buying users now that you are on top, or you're just getting off from the organic installs?
So if I can answer that, we actually started like this, a really quick test with a really small budget on purpose. The idea was to not even show up on App Annie, to be so low on charts that you don't appear there, but you still get a read on CPI and early retention. Because right after the test, we removed the game from sale, so people could not find it and clone it. It was like a stealth operation. But after a while, when we had to get proper, reliable numbers, we started increasing how much we buy with each test. So it went from what Miha mentioned, like 1,500 users. It's actually more about, hundreds of dollars that you spend and how many users you get in that time. We went up from that to 5,000 user tests, and we also started continuously buying users at the end, so you could see that the retention is consistent over a longer period of time, not just over 3 days or something. Yes, the CPI obviously increases when you want to buy a whole lot of users. And in our case, so I can't share the numbers specifically, but the CPI increased only by about 2, maybe up to 3 when we were on top of the charts, as far as I can tell. So yes, you spend a bit more during that time to be on top charts. Yes, you you fall off the charts immediately if you would stop buying. So all the games that you see on the charts, wherever they are within top 50 or top 100, I would say, are still buying a lot of users. The market has changed, so organics are super low if you're on top charts, because nobody scrolls all the way down to see the top charts. So it's mostly good marketing behind it to be on top charts. So.
Thanks.
And Maya.
Hey.
Hi.
Oh, I was just curious for the future. So you had like a bit of success in like different types of apps. So do you want to stick now to hyper casual, or do you have more plans?
Well, I can tell you that I loved working on Tinker Island, let's say, or Journey Jake, but those games took like 2 years to create, and hyper casual games are more short projects. Yes, we needed a bit of more time to create them, but we worked on sometimes 2 of them simultaneously. So from my point of view, they're fun to work on. So yeah, it's enjoyable to see results relatively quickly compared to more complex games that you develop for longer period of time.
So specifically, we're still working on 2, 3 hyper casual prototypes, new ones that we cannot share. And at the same time, we're also, like I mentioned, working on Tinker Island 2, and maybe we'll pick up some old prototypes that are casual, mid-core, and blow some dust off and see if we can make something out of them.
Cool, thanks.
Are there any more questions, or should we move to the casual mingling on Discord? So I guess this is no, and thanks all for coming, and we will finish here and see you all on Discord, and I'll just post the link in chat. So yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Everybody, thanks for
Ciao.
joining.
Ciao.
Thanks, Miha.
My pleasure.